No. Okay, so I'll blast through this as fast as I can. Terraform 101. I'll skip the introduction about myself. Why is this a big deal? I'm guessing there's people that are using ARM templates, the Azure PowerShell module, people dabbling in Bicep. Use Terraform, and it's kind of like the one infrastructure as code tool to run them all. So you can use it for Azure, GCP, AWS, VMware, Kubernetes. I've got an example repo with Terraform configurations, and it does stuff for VMware, Azure, and Kubernetes. You won't be able to do that with just stuff which leverages ARM on its own. Okay, so it's incredibly simple. You have a single binary which you download from Terraform. It's kind of a HashiCorp thing. They like single binaries to make life as easy as possible. You create what's called a configuration. So configuration is basically a set of JSON-like files which HashiCorp call HashiCorp configuration language files. Okay. The workflow is incredibly simple. What you basically have is you have a directory with a bunch of these files in. Typically, you have ones with HCL for resources, stuff for variables in. You run something called Terraform init. What that does is that downloads all the providers. So you need providers. So whatever you're standing up resources for, you need a provider for that target environment. Okay, you then run this thing called a Terraform plan. What that does is it's kind of, it does what it says on the tin. It creates a plan for how Terraform is going to stand up your resources, and it kind of creates a graph. And the nice thing about this is it works out all the dependencies between your resources. Okay, you can put stuff in your configuration files to sort of say you want things to be created in a certain order, but by and large, Terraform will look after that for you. You then run Terraform apply, and what that does is that goes away and creates all your resources. And then if you want to tear stuff down, which is a really nice thing, because I don't believe that things like Ansible or other infrastructure as code tools have this, you can run a Terraform destroy, and that will tear everything down. Okay, so when you run Terraform init, it installs a bunch of providers. This is part of a screen grab for something I've written. Okay, and by and large, you need to do something, you need a provider, but Terraform init should look after that for you. Okay, resources. So this little code fragment here, this is for a resource. This is what it basically looks like. Okay, you specify a type, a name, and then you have these things called provisioners. So what a provisioner allows you to do is it allows you to modify resource after it's been created. Okay. And also you can have what's called a destroy provisioner. So that's what to do when a resource is teared down. You can have a depends on block to sort of say that you only want the resource to be created after another resource is present. Okay, so you have variables. These can be really simple. So this is a simple example here. I've got this thing called a string. Okay, a string variable for the cube spray inventory. See on the right-hand side, that's where you plug it in to your resource. They can be more complex. So this thing here on the left, this is a list of collections, and you can do some quite funky things here. So what I'm doing here is I'm taking variables from this thing on the left, and I'm creating variables that are going to be plugged into this thing called a template. Okay, so how long have I got left, Ben? Ben?
You're good for another 4-ish minutes, I'd say.
Okay, so let me show you something else. So that is the very, very basics. You should hear me typing away. So I've got a couple of minutes. Let's see if I can blast through this. This is delivering material at Bob Ward speeds. This is Come on, come on, come on. Okay. Okay, let me share my screen again. Stop sharing, share screen, window. Okay, so everybody can see this this
Yes.
takes window, yeah. Okay, so what I've got here is I've got a bunch of things here. I've got Azure Data Services for standing up Azure Arc enabled data services, Kubernetes for Kubernetes clusters, VMware pool for creating VMware virtual machines to create a Kubernetes cluster on. Let's just go into the Kubernetes one. So what you can do is you can create these things called modules. So that is exactly what I've got here. Let's go into the one for the Kubernetes cluster. So I've got 4 here. I've got one for the Kubernetes cluster, one for Metal LB, and 2 for these storage solutions for Kubernetes. Okay, let's go into the Kubernetes cluster one. Okay, let's go into the main. Okay, so I've got a bunch of resources here. Okay, so you can see how I've got depends on. You can create things called, I've got null resources here. So if you want kind of like a dummy resource for something there isn't a bona fide Terraform resource for, you can create a null resource and you can do stuff using a provisioner. I'm using local provisioners here. So this thing here, this is a really powerful thing. This is Terraform's templating functionality. So you can create files based on templates. Okay, so let's come out of that. Let's go into the templates directory. So I've got this TPL file. This is quite a let's see what else we've got in here. Okay, let's go into the inventory one because that's a better one. Okay, so this is a template file, and you see these things here with the dollars in. What you can do is you can plug values into that. And what I'm using this for is I'm creating this inventory file. I use this to create a Kubernetes cluster, and then I can then create a big data cluster on top of that, or I can do stuff with Azure Arc enabled data services. Okay, how am I doing for time, Ben?
Almost there, so I'd say 60 seconds left.
60 seconds left. Okay, so let's look at some. In the time I've got left, let's okay, let's look at something that's Azure related. Okay, modules. Let's look at the controller. Okay, so this has got, hang on. So this has got some stuff in for Azure. Okay, so what I'm doing here is I'm creating service principals, password, role assignments. Down here, I've basically got this Arc data controller, which is basically a wrapper for AZ data for deploying an Azure Arc enabled data services controller to Kubernetes. What I'm working on at the moment is I'm working on actually replacing this with native Terraform resources. Okay, so I reckon I'm probably, because I can see Ben, I'm probably out of time. So that is a real fast whistle-stop tour of Terraform. And if anybody's interested, I've got a repo with all this stuff in.